Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Committee for the 11th of November. I would like to welcome members of the Planning Committee, officers and members of the public in attendance at today's meeting. Welcome to members of the public and press who may be watching the meeting live on YouTube. I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. Please remember that this meeting is being broadcast live and will be available for repeated viewing. Please could all councillors follow the Council's ground rules for virtual meetings, which have been well circulated. In particular, please use the chat facility to indicate any request to speak, and only speak when invited to do so by me as the Chairman. When members need to vote on a planning application, I will call each member to vote in turn. Please express your vote verbally with for or against or abstain. In accordance with the government regulations regarding virtual meetings and remote participation, all participants must be able to hear and be heard by all in attendance. When voting, I ask all members of the Planning Committee to do so in the acknowledgement that they have heard for the duration of the item and can therefore vote in accordance with the regulations. In the event of any technical problems, there will be a short adjournment to establish if the fault can be addressed. Please bear with us in these circumstances. If an individual loses connection and the meeting can practically continue with a quorum, it will do so. We also scheduled a number of items to be considered from 2 p.m. If any items are not considered in the morning session due to lack of time, they will be carried over to the afternoon. As it is Armistice Day today, I propose to have a comfort break before 11 a.m, which will allow members of the committee and everybody else to privately observe a 2-minute silence to remember those who have lost their lives in the line of duty. I will now call the name of each member of the Planning Committee and ask them to identify themselves as being in attendance at the meeting. As I previously mentioned, I am Councillor Christine Ward, Chairman of the Planning Committee. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Present, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Sue Benison.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Kate Crozell.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
Present, Chairman.
And Councillor Alan Glass.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Maureen Holding. Apologies have been received. Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Joe Riley.
Present, Chair.
And Councillor Tony Ring, who has also sent in apologies. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Present, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
Present, Chairman, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Beverly Thorne.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Malcolm Wade, who also, I believe, has sent apologies. Can you, Democratic Services, confirm those 3 apologies, please?
Yeah, apologies have been received from Councillors Ring, Wade and Holding.
Thank you very much. I will now call on the officers to introduce themselves, starting with our Chief Planning Officer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Claire Upton Brown. I'm the Chief Planning Officer.
Thank you, Chairman. Andrew Kinghorn, Legal Advisor.
Karen Wardle, Democratic Services.
It's Matt Wisdom here, Democratic Services. And to save our planning case officers, obviously there are a number of planning case officers here in attendance that will introduce themselves for each item.
Thank you. Have we had all the introductions then?
Yes, we have.
Okay, thank you. I'll now ask members to declare any interest. I'll start with myself. I have interest in 20/10994 as a member of New Milton Town Council, but not on the Planning Committee.
I also have.
Do I have any others? Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I'm interested in 2H, 13 Orchard Way, and 2J, Hythe-Knock. I'm a member of Hythe and Dibden Parish Council, but I'm not on the Planning Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, I will let you know now that the application for Orchard Way has been withdrawn, but I'll remind you about that again later. Councillor Beverly Thorne.
On page 57, item 3D, page 73, item 3E, and page 101, item 3G, I'm a member of Foley Parish Council.
Thank you very much. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, application 3A, page 7, 20/10695. I'm a member of the Tottenham Ealing Town Council, but I am not on the Planning Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Good morning. I'm also have interest in application number 210695, Rumbridge Street. I'm the member of the local council, but I'm not a member of the committee.
Thank you. Councillor Kate Crizzell.
Hello, I'm also on Tottenham Town for the reference of Rumbridge Street 20/10695 on the Planning Committee as well.
Thank you. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm a member of Foley Parish Council but haven't commented on these. It's page 57 3D, SO Sports and Recreation Club. Page 73 3E, Woodbury Nursery. Woodbury, beg your pardon, got tongue tied. Woodbury Day Nursery. Page 101, number 3G, Unit 24, Glenmore Business Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor David Hawkins.
Yes, I'm a member of the New Milton Town Council and their Planning Committee, and I have an interest in the application 20/10994. I will not vote on it, but I reserve to have maybe pass a comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That seems to be it for now. I can't see any more on there. So we'll go to our first application, which is 46 Rumbridge Street. And this is application number 20/10695, pages 7 to 20. I'd like to reiterate that each member votes in acknowledgement that they have been present for the duration of this item. If any individuals have connection issues leading to the meeting being incorrect and a vote cannot be taken, the application will be considered at a future meeting. Members, I do know you have just declared your interest on this one, but can I have, can you repeat again?
Councillor Arthur Davies, Chairman, member of the Tottenham Ealing Town Council, but not on the Planning Committee.
And do I have any others on that one? Mahmood Kangarani?
Well, I'm not on the Planning Committee at the moment. Thank you.
Chairman, it's Kate Crizzell. I am Tottenham Town Council and Planning, but I haven't had any discussion about this plan.
Thank you very much. I believe that's it. Karen, can you confirm that?
Yes, that's correct. And I believe we've got the 2 public speakers in the meeting as well, which is good.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, I propose that for all applications to be heard today, that members ask any questions of officers after we have heard the public speakers. Questions will therefore be taken at one time to both the case officer and the public speakers. I would like to now go to Jim Bennett for the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to plots in Runbridge Street. I should say there is one verbal update just to let members know that the legal agreement to secure the traffic regulation order has been completed now. This application relates to a site on Runbridge Street and at the junction of Junction Road here. The proposal is for 7 flats at ground floor level and first floor level, as well as a retail unit. The aerial plan gives a flavour of the urban makeup of the area. The site is approximately 370 metres from Totton Town Centre in this direction to the north, about 300 metres from the Asda Superstore to the northwest. Totton Railway Station is in this direction to the northeast, approximately 360 metres away, and the site itself is within Runbridge Street's secondary shopping frontage, so the development will be within the vicinity of all the services on that secondary shopping frontage. The main issues to consider with regard to this application is the introduction of residential units into the ground floor of a secondary shopping frontage, which is contrary to policy. Also, a big issue has been the absence of off-street car parking. It's a car-free scheme. So this slide gives you an indication of the roof form of the development. This gives us the floor plan layout. So these are the 3 residential units at ground floor level. They are within the secondary shopping frontage. They will have a defensible space to the front of the units, bound by low brick walls. They will also have small rear gardens. The first floor units will have balconies to, as far as open space is concerned, private open space. All of the flats are 1-bedroom units, so they're quite small. This is the floor plan of the shop unit, which will front Runbridge Street as well as Junction Road. So it will give a double aspect on this prominent corner plot. These are the proposed plans. So the front elevation facing Runbridge Street, these are the residential units. This will be the retail unit with accommodation above. This is the church building adjoining the plot, a single-storey building. And this building here is of a similar scale to the proposal, which the officers feel is in keeping with the proposal is in keeping with the scale of surrounding buildings. These are artistic impressions of the proposal, again giving an impression of how the building will look in relation to adjoining buildings and within the street scene, which officers generally feel is acceptable. These are photo montages of how the proposal will look. Officers are happy that this scheme is of a scale which is commensurate with surrounding buildings, and it will feel that it will significantly enhance the street scene here, hence the recommendation for approval. There has been quite a history of planning applications on this site stretching back a number of years, so this just gives a flavour of what we've previously been asked to consider on this site. The first one, this 2017 application, was a much more heavily massed structure, and which was refused in 2017. The applicant subsequently submitted this application, which was refused in 2018. Again, we felt that was too heavily massed. The roof form was inappropriate, and that was supported at appeal, which was dismissed later that year. So, but for comparison, this is the current proposal, which we feel is a much more acceptable form of development with an articulated roof form and articulated footprint, which will be of a benefit to the street scene. This is the current site, so you can see it is occupied by a building which will be removed from the site, but it's been vacant and it's in quite a dilapidated form. So you can see the site is getting slightly overgrown, and we feel that the proposed development would be a good reuse of this site and bringing forward urban renewal in an appropriate form. This is the view of the site from Junction Road. The development will be in this gap here. Again, another picture from Rumbridge Street showing the relationship of the site to the Spiritualist Church. And again, the existing building with the civil service offices in the background, which is a larger structure. So really, to conclude, officers, while acknowledging the site has its issues with regard to being a car-free scheme and the introduction of residential into the shopping frontage, we feel that these are outweighed by the fact that the proposal will make a significant addition to the housing supply. The quality of the development is good. The proposal will result in redevelopment of this prominent and vacant site, which has been so for many years, and that other issues have been addressed in respect of contributions for habitat mitigation, air quality, and the traffic regulation order which the County Highway Authority requested. Hence, the officers are recommending it for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I will now come to the public speakers. We have two. Mr. Ben Kelly for At This Planning Group, who is the agent. You have 3 minutes to speak. If you'd like to go ahead, please.
Thank you, everyone. The proposal before you today is for the redevelopment of an existing dilapidated site on the junction of Rumbridge Street and Junction Road, with 7 dwellings and a modern retail offering at ground floor level. As I hope is apparent from the CGI views of the proposal, the development is an attractive scheme which will positively contribute to the street scene, which, as alluded to in the case officer's report, is in need of significant update. It is clear that where objections have been raised, the strongest comments relate to the issue of parking, so I would like to use the majority of my time to address this point. As the committee will be aware, the general policy push in the last decade, particularly at national level, has been to direct development towards the most sustainable locations. This is echoed by the new local plan, with headline policy STR1 seeking to locate new development in sustainable and accessible locations, with the stated goal of minimising reliance on the private car. The need to do so is particularly poignant, given the government's declaration of a climate emergency and the commitments at both a national and local level to reduce emissions. The choice to provide a car-free development is a deliberate one. As repeated in the officer's report, the site lies in a highly sustainable location, which is within easy walking distance to all the facilities and amenities within Tottenham Town Centre, including multiple bus stops and the train station, only 6 minutes walk away. It should also be noted that the housing mix with smaller units is more likely to cater for households which typically have the lowest ownership rates of private vehicles. The development will also provide secure spaces for all residents to stow their bicycles, again encouraging sustainable transport. The applicant is willing to fund the implementation of a traffic regulation order, which will prevent adverse parking along Rumbridge Street and will also act to discourage residents from travelling by private vehicles. Importantly, should any of the new residents wish to travel by private car, the local highway network does have capacity to accommodate this demand. The case officer's report concludes on this issue. Given the sustainable location of the site close to the train station and public transport, a car-free development would be acceptable, and there is no evidence that severe public highway safety issues would result, particularly following the implementation of the extended TRO. The Highway Authority has also offered no objection to the scheme. The case officer and statutory consultees have undertaken a detailed assessment of all aspects of the scheme, all of which have been found to be appropriate and in line with the aspirations of both the Council's local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. The application before you is for a well-designed mixed-use development which is sustainably located, sits well within its urban context, relates positively to neighbouring buildings and will provide a slew of benefits, including the provision of much-needed housing, the redevelopment of an unattractive brownfield site, the creation of short-term economic benefits through the construction phase, and longer-term social, economic benefits from the establishment of new households within the local community, and the creation of a new commercial unit to serve the community. I therefore respectfully request that the committee grants planning permission for the proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. We'll now go to Mrs. James Batty, who is an objector. You have 3 minutes to address the committee. If you'd like to go ahead, please.
Right, is that okay now?
We can hear you, yes.
That's lovely, thank you. My major objections, I'm a neighbour of the site and have lived in Osborne Road within 20 yards of the new site for 40 years. And my major issue with the development is the fact that this area is saturated with single unit properties with no parking, which in itself brings a number of issues. I won't dwell on those, but just suffice to say that during the first lockdown, it was necessary for me to call the police 999 on 2 occasions. And that's within 10-15 metres of the proposed development. So similar type properties, rather than being homes, appear to be just created for single units, people without cars, as we've just mentioned. And I'd like to think that the people who moved in were thinking about the sustainability of using bicycles, but that's not my experience of the block of flats right next to my house. So number one, the type of development is an issue. We obviously do need the site to be regenerated and people to be able to see housing that's affordable. So that's one thing, the housing. Parking in this area, in my road, which is, you could see my house when you saw the picture from Junction Road. Parking along Osborne Road, which is a single track road, is horrendous and incredibly busy, and that's the closest place for parking. I'd really like to believe that none of the residents would have any cars. There's a potential for 2 cars per household, but I would sincerely imagine that there are going to be quite a number, as that does seem to happen. So what I would really like to object to is the type of housing and the fact that it's totally on a really busy corner. So for the current residents, there would be 2 issues. More parking, and it appears to me on the plans that the pavement width in front of the downstairs dwellings is incredibly narrow. That junction, Runbridge Street and Osborne Road, Runbridge Street and Junction Road, is incredibly busy. And when the train gates are down, the station is close by, but there also is a crossing in Junction Road very close.
Thank you, Mrs. Batty. You have had 3 minutes. Would you just like to wind up, please?
Thank you. So my objection is parking, the type of development, and the saturation of single units in the area.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Members, do you have questions for either the case officer or the public speakers? Councillor Anne Sevier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm just going to put my video up because it's always polite if I can get it to work. There we are. My question is really to our officers. We recently had a case where flats were given permission and then they came back to put flats and more flats into the roof. How is this roof form? Would it be possible for them to come back in the future and actually ask to put more flats into the roof space? I just wondered, are we sure this is only going to be a 2-storey development? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Who are you asking that question to? The officer?
Actually, it's to our officer, Jim Bennett, if I may.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman. We've been down this route before. We've actually had proposals for more flats on this site with the previous schemes that were actually refused. So I acknowledge you talking about the scheme in Maynard Road where they came back for 2 more flats on top, but I don't think there's any scope for this one to go to raise the roof and to put more units in, simply because we've been there before and it's been dismissed at appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Question for the officer and Mr. Kelly, if I may. First of all, for the officer, for Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Batty talked about this wall in front of the properties. I looked at the plans and it looks like you've taken up some of the pavement. Have you reduced the width of the pavement? One question. Can you hit? Oh,
yeah. The development will be within the curtilage of the current scheme. You can see this plan here. The wall will come along the line of this red line. The pavement in this location will in fact be wider than it is towards the west on Runbridge Street, and at the point where it joins Junction Road, it will in fact be quite generous. So I don't think the scheme is going to result in any significant obstruction of pedestrian flow along Runbridge Street or Junction Road.
So are you saying it's not taking up any more of the pavement than the present situation?
You can see this photograph shows the present situation. There's a canopy which comes from the front of the existing building, and there's Harris fencing up currently, so that is along the line of the proposed wall, so it won't obstruct pedestrian flows to any extent greater than the existing situation.
Thank you. And there's one other question, Chair, if I may. For the agent, is he the agent, Mr. Kelly? Is that right? Hello, Mr. Kelly. Councillor Arthur Davies here. Just a question for you. Did you consider putting in parking places in this development, or was that completely out of the question?
It wasn't completely out of the question, no. It was something that was considered at an earlier stage of development, but one of the considerations which led to it, as well as we thought the having a housing mix which comprised of smaller units would discourage users with private vehicles. That's been our clients' experience in the past. And the other reason was that there are viability considerations on this site, which is why also we do have a residential component at ground floor level as well, and really maximising the use of the site was key to allowing our client to come forward with a proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, if you can keep your questions to one to give other people a chance, and please not repeat questions. Councillor Kangarani.
Yeah, actually, my question is for officers. My first question would be about the nitrate neutrality. Although it's been deferred to provide a report after the development, how can we enforce if there is not enough mitigation? Because obviously the building already been built. Therefore, are we going to put the place down?
The should permission be granted, the application will be subject to condition number 7, which requires a water efficiency calculation to be submitted and for nitrate neutrality to be achieved by the development. That's before occupation of the development. It will allow it to be constructed. The council is currently looking at schemes to address nitrate neutrality, and hopefully there will be a scheme available down the line.
Obviously, down the line, there's not any at the moment. There is no solution if they can't meet the requirement. And then what would be next? Are they going to this place going to stay unoccupied for years to come if there is no scheme?
Can I just step in here, please? The condition is an enforceable condition. It requires that prior to first occupation, that mitigation is provided. So that's an appropriate condition. We're working on projects, and there are projects that are available to seek to address this issue. So it's perfectly reasonable for the planning committee to seek to grant planning permission with this Grampian style condition in place.
Thank you very much for explaining that. Councillor Hilary Brand.
Sorry, you didn't finish my question. Can I hold back for any questions? Or?
Is it the same? You've just had an answer to the question. Is it a different question?
Sure, yeah, that was the next question, if I may.
I can't hear you very well.
Sorry, can I have the next question? Can I
I've asked you to stick to one question while I go through the list.
Okay, well, fine.
We'll just wait to see if somebody else asks. If I can go to Hilary Brand, please. Are you there, Hilary? We can't hear you.
I apologise. Sorry. Question for the officer. Is it possible, if this goes ahead, to have a condition put in about the management of the building works due to that area being really congested in the morning with the train gates and traffic, something that would enable it to not hold up things in the morning and the evening? I can't see anything in the current conditions.
Yeah, you're probably looking at a construction management plan condition.
Yes.
Yeah, we could put that in if that's something you feel is necessary. Yes.
I just know that area gets really, really busy at certain times, especially with the train coming, and it would be sensible to have something in place that would try and mitigate that.
Yeah, we can certainly add that condition.
Thank you for that. Councillor Alan Glass.
Thank you. Question for Jim Bennett. This reapplication, or this new application, is so similar to the old one and leaves the same problems with parking, etc. What is significantly different to this, from this to the old one, to make sure that the one that was refused on appeal, that this one could go ahead? Because I'm not very happy with it.
Right, well, the current slide shows the current application with the previous one. This proposal was similar in terms of retail floor space and residential on the bottom, but it had rooms in the roof, an additional 2 flats in the roof. So that was a scheme for a total of 9 units. In terms of design, you could see that the roof of this, the eaves are much higher, looking like a very top-heavy type of development, which is why we felt it was unacceptable, and the inspector agreed with us in terms of the scale and massing of the building. So you can see this current proposal has got much lower eaves above the window heads. The roof form is split up. It's got an articulated roof form, which we feel is an appropriate form of development in terms of its impact on the street scene. The 2018 refusal was not, and that's why I'm confident that should they come back in for a scheme with more flats, then we'd be able to resist it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kangarani, did you want to come back with one question?
Yeah, sure, if I may. Hopefully you can hear me better now. I've got my headset on. The retail unit facing the Junction Road, the pavement is very narrow at that point. If you look at the other units along the Junction Road. They all have been set back, allowing for the people to stop by the shop, for example. Whereas here, we are relying on the 1 meter wide pavement, which anybody want to go into the shop, maybe put their bike to go into the shop, they completely block the pavement. I'm just wondering whether they have a room to set back to some degree to allow for people to stop and browse the shop window if they want to, or similar.
The slide I've got up currently shows the space between the shop window, this is the Runbridge Street shop window and the Junction Road. So the pavement is in fact wider than any point along Runbridge Street to allow people to window browse or put their bikes. This is Junction Road, yeah. That's
right, yeah. There is no space on there at all.
Well, the pavement is in excess of 2 meters wide in both of these locations, so there will be scope for people to pass and repass.
I mean, if you look at the takeaway next door, for example, they set back the building next door. And also, if you go further down the road, you can see all the shops have got parking area for their cars. But that one hasn't got any sort of extra space. I would recommend the building has to go back.
Councillor Kangarani, we're not sort of redesigning this. You had an adequate answer from Mr. Bennett. So we'll move on. There are no more questions. We'll move on to debate. Members, we're now in debate. Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Right, I'll try and be brief. I understand the pressures on today. First of all, this plot definitely needs redevelopment. It's like the officer pointed out, it's a very ugly place at the moment. I think it used to be a greengrocer's. I remember it well. It's on a very prominent, Bats Corner is very prominent. Everyone in Totton knows Bats Corner. We need something special there. So it definitely needs it. So I do concur that it needs to be, something needs to be designed. Now, the thing is with the parking, as the town council have stated, and is it Mrs. Batty, the local resident, the trouble is, and I had this discussion with a councillor the other day, trouble is, someone in these flats in the future will have a car. It's happened in Fordingbridge and other areas, and that position round there, there's a little road goes alongside Osborne Road. I think that's where Mrs. Batty lives, and there's no parking at all. The houses go straight onto the road, and if anyone does get a car in that new building, they're gonna park in Osborne Road, which is horrific. I know someone who lives in Osborne Road, and it's horrific parking, as Mrs. Batty, I think Mrs. Batty said. So it's going to be massive problems in future. That is 100% sure. I don't know how we can help out if it does go ahead. How we can help out Osborne Road. I'm not sure whether you consider residents' parking area or something like that to deter future residents. And I don't know. That's something I think is worth considering. Okay. So I'll leave it as that at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. I've looked at this current application and I'm looking at it now, and I think this current application is vastly improved on the 2018 and 2017 applications that came before us. We are sorely in need of these small one-bedroomed units. I don't believe that anybody occupying a one-bedroom unit will automatically have a car. And I think anybody who takes up occupation of these units know that it is car-free parking. It does not come with car parking. So if they have a car, it would be silly for them to occupy one of these units. So I think this is a really good design. We have a commercial unit on the corner. It tidies up the whole corner, which is a mess at the moment. I shall be voting in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sevier.
Yep, there we go. Just getting the video up. There we go. Yes, Madam Chairman, I have my thoughts on the parking, which obviously the property before, I don't know if it had parking before, but looking at the picture we have on the screen at the moment, a lot of properties around there obviously do not have parking on their own property. And so to a certain extent, though I realise it could add extra, it seems very difficult to actually penalise this site when other sites around it also do not have parking. So, and being centre of a town, lots of centres of towns and cities all over the country don't have parking. So I am minded, though I understand the problems that we are facing with parking in Totton, I'm minded to actually support the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kangarani.
Okay, thank you. I hope you allow me to say more words before you push me out of the way. I live in the area. I'm quite familiar with the area, and I know obviously a need for accommodation too. But at the same time, the location of this property is such that if you, on a hot day, summer day, come in that area, when the train gate is down, the traffic go all the round the way from Junction Road to Grumbridge Street, and you're looking about the properties on the ground floor, facing the traffic, the car fumes, and also who wants to stand in the Juliet or Romeo window, balcony to inhale the traffic? I mean, that doesn't make sense to me at this stage. And also, I did go on about the pavement. The pavement width is not wide enough. It's a meter wide on the Romberger Street side. This is not, it should be a bit widened. And then also, because again, look at for the inside the property, I'm sure they're going to be single parents going to live in that place, and they will have a pusher and prams. Where they're going to put their pusher and prams. Another issue is the wheelie bins space. We know the wheelie bin is coming. Where they're going to put the wheelie bins for these people to put their rubbish in. And these are really small details that hasn't been addressed. We need to start more looking into that before we commit ourselves to allow for this planning permission to go through.
Thank you, Councillor Kangarani. Thank you for your comments. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at the planning history. It first started in 2008, refused. Going 2014 refused, 2017 refused, 2018 refused. I think it's time we did something on this site. So I do concur with Councillor Bennison and Councillor Sevier that we should get on with this this development on this site. It does have 7 valuable single bedrooms flats being proposed. It's very necessary to have these smaller units in a place like Totton, and I would recommend that we do accept the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
So you're proposing that we accept, yes?
I think we will propose. I will propose, yes.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kate Crizell.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to second. I agreed with Councillor Dunning on all fronts, really. I think we've done as much as we can to get this site up and running in the best way possible. I agree with all the planning issues, but I think we're where we are now, and I think this is the best option. So I will be accepting the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, I think we've covered this well in the debate. I'll give the speakers 1 minute to sum up. So if we can go to Mr. Kelly, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points there. I think everything was covered quite well by the councillors. One important point is that the previous scheme, the most recent scheme, which went to appeal on the basis of the impact upon the character and appearance of the area. When considering the traffic impact, the highway impact, the inspector held no objection, which might be relevant for councillors to consider. And secondly, to address the point about the bins, which one of the councillors just made, on the screen, which the case officer is showing now, over the cursor, that's the area where bin and cycles parking will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Batty, you have 1 minute.
Hello. Yes, I understand what every speaker has said about the need for the development of the site because it is a mess. But the impact on the current residents is something that needs to be considered too. Whilst I live in Osborne Road and the parking is horrendous, the traffic from Junction Road is horrendous, and I think that needs to be considered by everyone, please.
Thank you very much. Members, we'll now move to the vote, and I just need to confirm with all members that they have not had connection problems. Nothing's been reported, so I believe that all of you are able to vote, and we are voting.
Can I just confirm if the additional condition is going to be added to the proposal?
Mr. Bennett, what would you like to add that?
Yes, I will add that condition for the construction management plan. Yep.
Do you want to spell it out?
What, the wording of the condition?
The condition, yeah.
Well, it'll be prior to commencement of work on the site. Details outlining how the developer will manage construction traffic in relation to the adjoining traffic issues on Runbridge Street will be addressed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this recommendation is to grant, and that's been proposed by Councillor Dunning and seconded by Councillor Benison. So we're voting to grant. For, against or abstain. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Benison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
Against.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
For.
Councillor Kate Crazell.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Against.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Sorry, for.
Councillor Kangarani.
Against.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
For.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
And I will be voting for. So that's been carried. If you'd like to confirm the vote on that, please, Democratic Services.
Hello, I can confirm that we've got 14 votes for, 3 against, so that carries the motion to approve.
Thank you very much. That concludes this item. I'm going to adjourn now just to enable the speakers to leave the meeting.
Chair, can I just say quick brief?
Members, we are now on to application 19/11439, pages 21 to 42, land at Merlin, Lymington Road, Milford, NC. I would like to go now to the case officer, Richard Knapp, for your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. If you can just confirm that the images are on the screen.
They are.
Okay, thank you. Just firstly, there's no updates on this application. So this plan application relates to development to demolish the existing dwelling and to construct 4 houses in Milton-on-Sea village centre. 1 dwelling will be accessed from the west. 3 dwellings would be accessed from the east. Just the aerial image which just shows the context of the area. On the eastern side of the application site there are 6 flats, and that serves the existing access onto the high street. This is a dentist which also uses that access and parking to the back. The western access is served by several residential properties on the western side. Members recall that this application was previously considered at the committee back in February, in which the committee resolution was to grant permission subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement to secure habitat mitigation and the imposition of conditions. At that February committee, members noted the concerns over public highway safety in relation to the eastern access, and the committee agreed to impose an additional condition to require both points of accesses to be provided and the passing place as shown on that plan prior to the first occupation of the residential units. Since that committee resolution, no decision has been reached on the application. The reason that no decision was reached on the application is because the applicant has stated that whilst they are content with regard to providing the condition for both access points into the site, they do not want any reference to the passing place. As such, the application has been amended by removing the passing places, hence the amended plan that has taken the passing places away from the site layout, and the applicant doesn't want any reference to the condition referring to passing places. The applicant has stated that whilst they have a legal right over this land along the access into the site, it is third-party ownership, and therefore they are not able to mark out a specific passing place or bay. The applicant considered that the condition with the passing places on there would prohibit the deliverability of the development. Accordingly, this application has been brought back to committee to specifically remove the passing places from the plans and to approve the rewording of the condition by removing any reference to passing places. Given that committee resolution was to grant consent, this is not to reconsider all the issues. The key issue for members to consider is whether the removal of the passing place from the plans and the requirement through a condition to secure the passing place would result in significant harm to public highway safety. So just, I'll bring up this plan here. The blue line here just indicates the passing place. So this is what's this is the issue, the contention of the application. I'll just show some photographs as well, just to help show what it looks like on the ground. So the passing place would have been provided just behind this car here. So this is the eastern access. You come up from the high street along the drive, and the intention was on the original application was to provide a passing space where you've got those double yellow lines. On the right hand side of that is where you've got car parking spaces for the dentist. It is important to note that by removing the passing places from the plans and the condition, it doesn't actually prohibit this space being used for car parking for 2 cars to pass if required. It just means that this space is not specifically marked out to be laid out as passing places. It's also important to note that the Hampshire Highway Authority confirmed in its consultation response that the passing place is a betterment to the situation. However, they would not look to object to the application without this feature. Moreover, the applicant has provided an updated plan which shows that they can actually achieve 2 cars to pass within their control. So if I just show you this plan on here, so here's the passing place which lies off the existing access. Here's the access that serves the development, which is all within the applicant's control, and as you can see on this plan here, there's actually space for 2 cars to pass at this point. There's 4.9 metres here, For two cars to pass, the minimum that's normally required is 4.5 metres. So the two cars can actually pass within the development site, within the control of the applicant, a very short distance away from where the passing places would have been provided. So officers feel that there's no significant harm in public highway safety by removing any reference to passing places. It's also important to note that the removal from this will still allow cars to pass if that space is available at that time. The critical issue is that two cars can pass at this point within the site. So officers maintain the recommendation that the application should be granted. We will continue to put the condition on that relates to those two access points to be provided, but we just have no reference to the passing places. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nutt. I'd like now to go to Mr. Simon Proctor, the agent. You have 3 minutes to speak. If you'd like to speak now, please.
Just check you can hear me, please, Chairman.
We can hear you, thank you.
Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Simon Proctor. I'm a chartered surveyor and I'm appearing on behalf of the charities to which the site known as Merlin has been bequeathed. When charities are left a gift in somebody's will, they have a legal duty to use that gift as effectively as they can. The decision to seek planning permission for this site and therefore to maximise value recognises not only this legal obligation but also Mrs Beverley's specific intention to benefit wildlife, working equines and the lives of young people with learning disabilities. This application was approved at the 12th February 2020 Planning Committee in line with officers' recommendations and an earlier planning appeal decision. Approval was subject to completion of Section 106 agreement and planning conditions. The Section 106 has been signed and is now with New Forest District Council. The conditions, including the additional condition requested by members at committee, are acceptable, save for reference to passing places. The stated reasoning for this condition is to ensure adequate parking and highway safety. However, the passing place does not provide parking and in light of Hampshire County Council comments does not improve highway safety. As the committee will be aware, the access to the site is via an existing and long established shared access, which in tandem with others is by way of a legally documented right-of-way. The right-of-way confirms a full and free right and liberty at all times and for all purposes to pass and repass over and along the vehicular access road. It does not provide for changes to the access road which must remain open and available at all times for all permitted to use it. Hampshire County Council Highways has stated that we noted that the revised site layout plan shows that passing places have been removed. As stated in our previous highway response, notwithstanding this, the agreement in principle of the less than 10% increase was without the provision of a passing place, and therefore the Highway Authority would not look to object to the application without this feature. Having regards to the above, the Highway Authority would recommend no objection. This recommendation has remained consistent, was accepted by officers and did not form part of the planning conditions proposed in February 2020. It should also be noted that the planning inspector was able to consider this and supplementary evidence on highway matters submitted on the scheme and saw neither reason nor justification for such a condition. Planning conditions must be reasoned, reasonable and justified, and I respectfully suggest that the inclusion of the words passing places in this condition do not meet these criteria. Further, to require this condition could place authority at risk of challenge and an award of costs. Notwithstanding, the situation on the ground already provides adequate space for vehicles passing on the shared access, and the proposed development also provides an access width of not less than 4.9 metres within the site, sufficient to allow two vehicles to pass. I would like to stress that the charity's aim is to provide a high quality development that makes the best use of a previously developed sustainable site within a village where the local plan seeks to provide small scale development of this nature. We've worked hard maintaining an open and constructive dialogue with council officers to ensure this and that the developed site does not impact negatively on the existing highway or access. As such, I respectfully request removal of the words passing places from condition and welcome your agreement to this view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Karen Wardle, could you just confirm for me, do we have another speaker, member of the public?
Yes, we do.
Is that Mrs. Murfitt?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Mrs. Murfitt, if you'd like to go ahead, you have 3 minutes to address us. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. Can I just confirm that you can hear me?
We can hear you, thank you.
Lovely. May I start again then? Good morning, councillors. I would like to raise some basic questions with you for this ongoing planning application. The peninsula village of Milford is an all-year-round popular holiday destination. New build has created many more holiday and family homes, so our roads now are far, far busier. In the case officer's report, number 11.23, it says there will be little impact to access the eastern entrance for 3 new houses. How is this possible? Southcourt Flats were built in the 60s when the main road was like a country lane. The house for demolition has lain empty for many years. Now, with a busy dental practice at its main road entrance, we witness speed, vehicles driving in and out and reversing onto the bend of the main road. The poor access visibility means we just get by, which is not ideal with the mounting volume of traffic. Increasing more vehicles through this narrow passage does not fit with anyone's safety. As residents, we paid and presented to planning a traffic survey to highlight the dangers and sight lines for this access. Boundary disputes still exist for parking on Southcourt's very small forecourt. This will inevitably lead to problems for vehicles accessing the private drive of Merlin. And with modern day living, home deliveries in large vehicles will certainly be reflected with the new homes. Do you honestly see how this can work? Material change to the access on the western side is now blocked and pending an injunction. What will you decide about the 4th house? Using the eastern access will indeed exceed the 10% and require a new review by Highways. As the narrowest width of this access is barely 3 metres, how will an HGV with an average width of 2.5 to 3 metres access this substandard drive without causing chaos onto the main road? But I recognise this is not a planning issue. Safety of pedestrians and residents is largely overlooked with no walkway. Will you consider us when a rush delivery driver causes an accident? Will a sick resident have to be loaded into an ambulance via the main road because the vehicle is unable to manoeuvre within the drive? Will a fire tender be able to reach a critical situation when sprinklers can't do the job? Please don't let profit and cost become more important than the lives, safety and human rights of we, the residents of Southcourt. My thank yous.
Thank you. Members, just before we go to questions, were there any interests on this one? I don't remember anybody declaring an interest on this. Karen Wardle, can you confirm, were there any interests?
I don't think so. I just wanted it on the public record. There were no interest. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go to questions then, please, for officers and members of the public. Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Thank you. I just can't understand. This is to the developer. I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name. I can't understand how they can try and take this parking away. I go to that dentist regularly and I cannot park in a dentist car park because somebody from the flats at Southcourt is trying to get in or trying to get out. I feel so sorry for those flats. How can the developer say that the 2 entrances either side are adequate? I just cannot understand it. Can he please verify why he wants to take the parking spaces away, why he wants to take the inlet away? Is it to just look good, or has he been up there and tried to park? I'm sorry, could he answer that, please?
Yes, can you hear me, Councillor Hopkins?
Yes.
There's no proposal to amend the parking in any way. Parking is entirely compliant with policy and is provided entirely on site. The removal of the reference to parking spaces is because we are not able to mark out that land because we only have a right of way over it. But passing is possible at that point and immediately beyond it within the site.
No.
Okay, sorry.
Do I allowed another question regarding the thing that for people with learning disabilities? What was that?
Well, this application is just about the parking spaces. We've already considered the application back in February, and it was granted with conditions. All we're doing is removing these conditions on the parking spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hawkins.
Yes, this is a question to Mr. Richard Knapp. How does he reckon that the bin man's going to get up there to empty the bins without a passing area? And also, I would have thought that if the condition can't be met by the developer, the whole plan fails, in my book. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knapp?
Yeah, in relation to the passing place, that was something which the applicant put forward to try to create a betterment by having the passing place. The passing place was never something which as officers suggested that needed to be provided. The highway authority also said that the passing places was something which they didn't suggest or require to make the development acceptable. Traffic surveys and traffic generation was calculated on the site based on the existing traffic generation and what's proposed, and that resulted in a traffic increase of less than 10%. Because the traffic generation onto the high street was less than 10%, that's why the highway authority said that there is no requirement to provide the passing places. So that's purely down to the applicant initially wanting to provide the passing place to improve the situation. However, the suggested condition at the February committee was assessed by officers and assessed by the applicant, and then it was realised that it's not an acceptable condition to impose in relation to the passing places. The additional plan that the applicants now provided actually shows two cars can pass within the site, within their control, and that's something which is considered acceptable. In relation to the waste collection, people have said that the refuse vehicles will be left on the road. They won't be accessing the site, and they will collect it by hand. So the waste collection people, and that was addressed in the previous report and the earlier report back in 2018, where waste collection would be collected by hand, and there's a bin collection point on the access of the development. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe Riley.
Chair, just to let you know that I won't be voting on this application because I missed most of the officers' report, so I won't be voting on it. Okay?
Thank you very much. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. My question is to Richard Knapp. Richard, I'm looking at chart 42 and chart 41. They show this road in opposite directions. Can you confirm that the passing place that we are talking about is behind what looks like a car that's parked on the road there in chart 42, but the road itself, to me, looks capable of taking two vehicles in opposite directions anyway.
No.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so can you see the photograph here, the number 41?
Yes.
So when you come in off of the high street, the access at this point is very narrow, so two cars certainly cannot pass at this point.
Yep.
When you go beyond the back of the car, which is parked at the back of the dentist, this is when the space opens up. So
Yep.
the passing place was intended to be around here. The intention of the condition would have meant that it would have maybe been marked out and shown as parking space, or it would have been labelled as parking space. So technically, there's no change on the grounds. So if a car comes up the high street and a car's coming from the development or South Court or coming out of the dentist, two cars can still pass at this point. But the key issue really is that we can't have a marking on the ground. We can't label something on there that says a passing place and should only be available as a passing place at all times. So the situation is that two cars could pass at this point, if at that time there's no cars that are parked in association with the dentist. So you have space to pass. So if I just show another photograph as well, so behind this car, if a car's coming out of this development and a car's coming up here past the hatch lines, two cars, if it's free as it is shown on this photograph, two cars can pass at this point.
Richard, there are double white lines along both sides of the road, so there won't be any parking on this tarmac area, so it will always be free for two cars to park. Am I correct?
That's correct, and I think what's quite important as well is that when you look at the site plan that the applicant updated, if I just bring it up on the screen, in a situation where a car's coming out of the new development and a car's coming up from the high street, the view from coming out of the new development, as shown in my cursor, you will be able to see a car coming up the access from the high street. So if a car needed to go into the new development, at that point two cars can pass. If the car that's coming up from the high street along this access and can't get used this space here, they can wait whilst and the car either goes to Southcourt or parks at the dentist. So what this scheme has now shown with this additional plan is that two cars can pass within the access.
Okay. Okay, so virtually at 2 points where you're indicating further up and also down where the blue line is, they can pass on that tarmac road anyway.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Councillor Bennison. I think that's very clear.
Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Before I give my question to Richard Natt, we're here today to specifically consider the parking place. No other. There's nothing else. The whole site has been granted at the last meeting, so we're just specifically. I just wanted that confirmed, which I know the answer to that. And the other one is on your plan 2B, Richard. You've got the parking place with the two cars, but I think you've just answered it actually. Those are trees there that your intention to plant. And I'm just saying, it's quite imperative that you can see the bend as you look down where the two pass. The previous passing place was. If you're going to stop at the top end, am I explaining myself properly? I don't think I am. It's imperative that there's no trees in the way. So what you explained to Councillor Bennison a minute ago, that you can stop on the site, not there, not that one. Up on the 2B plan. No, sorry, I'm misleading. Go back to what.
Councillor Davies, I don't think anybody has an intention to plant trees, which is going to obscure vision. So I'm not understanding where this is leading to.
I must just one more thing, then I'll give up. Then, Chair, sorry. We're considering the two parking places, which we're going to decide whether it's we're going to grant or not grant. Richard now is identified another place further around the corner where you can stop and look down the road to make sure there's no HGV or whatever coming up. But if that big green, I think, that's it, Richard. Where the tree is, that a tree? It's imperative that you get clear vision down that road. I should shut up now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that, Mr. Natt?
It's really that if you're coming out of the development, that because of the nature of the road, and this is important, because of the nature of the road is not perfect, and that includes the pedestrian segregation, the gradient and the visibility, that means that cars travelling on this road will be slow, and when they come along the road, because they'll be slow because it's a difficult road, they will, as soon as they leave the access, have full vision of where the passing place is and this is in access, and at that point they can make a decision to either reverse back or wait for a car to pass. So it's something where the visibility is good along this access as soon as you leave that entrance.
You answered that very well, much more clearer than I would.
All right, cheers.
Thank you. We do have a letter to be read, but I'll go to two more questions. Councillor Anne Corbridge, would you like to ask your question?
Thank you, Chairman. It's a question for the case officer. Richard, can you clarify the issue of the Barnes Road entrance, please? Because there's several references to this being either under dispute or being closed off. And obviously, if either of those things are true, it has implications for the roadway that we're talking about.
And that's the western access, I think it referred to, is off Barnes Lane, this access here. Along here. I mean, I think that issue was something that was raised at the last committee, that there could be potential injunctions or legal issues with this western access. But the critical thing is it's really something which is not a planning consideration. The issue in this case is that there's an existing access, and it's for the applicant to prove that they can gain the right of access onto Barnes Lane to serve the development. That condition that members requested for both points of access points to be provided prior to the first occupation of the dwelling would obviously resolve that issue as well. So the injunction issue and the factors that could be blocked off is not a planning consideration. That's something where it's up to the applicant to demonstrate that they can get an access or right of way onto Barnes Lane.
Forgive me, I don't understand that, because although you say it's not a planning concern, if that access onto Barnes Lane is not accessible, presumably that means more traffic on the road disputing at the moment.
You can't access the chalet bungalow on the western side. That's a footway that links onto this courtyard. So there's no road connection between the single dwelling and the three. So if there, for instance, there was an issue with this road not being delivered, this scheme doesn't allow cars to then increase the use of this eastern access. The two sites don't link. The detached property and the pair of the three properties, they don't link together. So you can't. There's no vehicle access between Unit 4 to link onto this development. That property is only served by that existing access. So there's no possible way, unless they completely amend the whole scheme to get an access onto here, and that would be subject to a separate plan application.
I see. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I have a statement to be read by Andrew Kinghorn from Miss Sarah Pitt from Milford-on-Sea Parish Council. If you'd like to go ahead with that, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The Parish Council says as follows. The Parish Council maintains its previous objections to the application on the grounds of inadequate and therefore dangerous access routes. This has now been exacerbated by one of the proposed access routes from the site onto Barnes Lane being blocked off. In addition, the removal of passing place on the Lymington Road access will mean that pedestrians will have an even more dangerous route to traverse down this single track, and there will also be increased congestion given the increased number of expected vehicle movements the proposed development will bring. The Parish Council still has concerns about the lack of access for emergency vehicles and refuse lorries. The Parish Council maintains that the visibility when turning onto Lymington Road is very poor, being on a blind bend and therefore hazardous to all road users. Visibility displays, as indicated on the plans, are inadequate, and to make them safe would require purchasing more land from the neighbouring properties, which is likely to be costly and impractical. The Parish Council requests that Hampshire County Council Highways reconsiders its original comment and investigates these issues more closely, given the altered circumstances of the location. The Parish Council strongly requests the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go to Claire Upton-Brown, please.
Yeah, members, just quickly, I just wanted to draw attention to condition 18, which does require those two access points to be provided prior to occupation. So that legal issue will have to be resolved prior to the dwelling being occupied.
Thank you. I have two more speakers. Do you have anything new to ask? Councillor Glass.
My question's already been answered, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kangarani.
Just a simple question. I take it this is a non-adopted road, and obviously there's a maintenance to be done, if I'm correct. And also, could you recommend traffic calming to reduce the speed of vehicles which might be travelling up and down?
I don't think that's to be considered in this application, but I will go back to Mr. Nat if you'd like to comment, please.
Yeah, so the road's not adopted or maintained by the Highway Authority. In terms of traffic calming measures, as explained before, the access is not perfect. That was recognised by officers, the inspector, planning inspector, and the Highway Authority. Because the road isn't perfect, it means that vehicles drive slowly. So traffic calming measures wouldn't improve the situation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very aware of the time, so I'm going to bring this to an end at the moment, because we will have to adjourn very, very shortly before we go into debate. So I think, members, we will adjourn now, and if you can be back after the 2-minute silence, if you can be back at 10 past, we'll continue on this application. Thank you. Members, welcome back, and we will continue with the application Land at Merlin, Lymington Road. We are now going to be into debate. Councillor Hopkins, you wish to say something?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I just can't believe that this is all smoke and mirrors to me, because I do not see how people who live around that area can say this is not a problem. The traffic is just, it's incredible in the summer, and it's not so good in the winter either, because we're all, even now in lockdown, the traffic along there, park all along the garage, all around, right through to the dentist, and there is just no room for any more traffic coming in there. What worries me is the Barnes Lane end. If anything happens there, if they open that up, it really is blind when you come round that corner to that opening, if they get permission to get it through. But to have just one access to that, to me, is impossible. I hope everybody's listening, because as a Milford lover of Milford, I just can't I can't agree with this. I'm sorry. I will not be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Can I remind you, please, that this is just about removing a condition for passing places. It's not an application on the whole site. Councillor David Hopkins.
Yes, I too am a Milford District Councillor, and I agree totally with everything that my fellow councillor Christine Hopkins has just said. But my thoughts are that this is a condition that was put on when we as a district voted for the building or the planning. So if this condition can't be met, then the planning fails in my eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire Upton Brown, do you want to come back on this, please?
Yeah, I think that's a good point for me to come back. Members, the officer's recommendation on the application was one of approval. The committee added this issue, or it's been added as a betterment, but there's no requirement for this based on either your officer's recommendation or the comments of the Highway Authority for this passing bay to be provided. So there's no planning reason for needing these passing bays. This has come back to you now on a single issue, and as officers we're advising you that this scheme is acceptable without those passing bays. So it's the members of the committee now to consider what is it that they could justify taking a different decision based on the advice of officers that this scheme isn't an acceptable scheme without those passing bays. The application itself doesn't have to address existing deficiencies in parking and highway issues across the wider area. It only has to provide adequate access and parking for the development that is being considered, and this has already been established in the formal resolution to grant. So members, I hope that clarifies what you're being asked to consider this morning, and also what evidence you have or don't have to come to any decision of the planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sue Bennison.
Thank you, Chairman. I guess I need to apologise to Councillor Hopkins and Councillor Hawkins because I'm going to take an opposing view on this. I was going to ask a question of the parish council had they been there, and just to clear this up about this Barnes Lane entrance. If that isn't available, the developer won't be able to build that house. And would have to come back with another application, as the case officer has made quite clear to us. So what we are here today is to decide whether we want to continue with the condition that we put on last time regarding the passing places. Now, to my mind, I've questioned the case officer, and he has clearly shown to me that there is the ability for 2 cars to pass on this access road. Having said that, if it were to be difficult, then the developer is going to have difficulty in selling these houses if this access is so poor that people wouldn't be able to access their houses. So for me, it is clear that last time, in my humble opinion, we possibly made a little bit of a mistake in insisting that this condition be put on there, where clearly there is the ability to pass on this road without this extra space. So for me, Chairman, I should be voting with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Yes. If, you know, in a court of law, if you're on bail and you have conditional bail and you break your conditions, you commit an offence. Now,
Councillor Hawkins, I don't think we can go down this route. This isn't illegal.
Let me finish. We put a condition on this planning. Now, the planning went through with this condition. Now, we're being asked to take this condition away because it can't be added by the developer. So therefore, in my eyes, the actual planning falls, and we need to re-look at it.
Thank you for your comments. I can't agree with them, but thank you for them anyway. Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Well, thank you. Councillor Hawkins has said exactly what I was going to say. If we were sufficiently concerned about this issue when we actually allowed this to go through last time, I don't see how we can just dismiss that concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barry Dunning.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's really a question for Mrs. Upton Brown. Do we have any planning reasons for not removing the undeliverable conditions?
So, members, the simple answer is no. You do not have, there is no planning justification for the condition. It was added as a betterment, as an additionality, but the advice you've been given by the case officer and myself is that this is an acceptable development without the delivery of those passing bays. The condition cannot be met. It's not required to deliver to good development. It's an additionality, and therefore the advice I'm giving you as a planning committee is there are no grounds to look to refuse this application in the absence of that condition.
Thank you, Claire. So we cannot refuse it, really, then?
That is the advice that I am giving the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Crizell, please.
I think we've discussed all the pros and cons, and I understand everybody's frustration, but I'd like to propose that we accept the officer's proposal because we have no choice, really. Thank you.
I would like to second that.
Okay.
Barry done it. Okay. Thank you. There's nobody else there that wants to take part in a debate, so then we'll move on.
Shall I just pop in? Sorry.
Have you anything new to say?
No, I may be slightly confused about the explanation. If we put a condition and then next time we say, well, that condition is void, then why we have a condition in the first place? Sorry, just didn't get the answer to that.
Okay, we have had that answer just explained by Claire Upton Brown, and I'm not going back there. Thank you. So we come back to the speakers. You have 1 minute to sum up. So if we can go to Mr. Simon Proctor, you have 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think I have much more to add other than Claire Upton Brown's comprehensive summary of the situation. I'd just like to stress it's passing places, not parking places, being removed. There's plenty of space on site and on the access to pass, and it is an established access. And I would respectfully request that the condition is amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Jambati, you have 1 minute, please. Do we have Mrs. Batty here?
Chairman, it was a previous application. I think you want Mrs. Murfitt.
Sorry, I am looking at the wrong page. Right, sorry, Mrs. Murfitt.
It's actually Mrs. Pitt.
Oh, Miss.
No, it's Mrs. Murfitt because Mrs. Pitt
that was read out by Andrew Kinghorn. The submission by Sarah Pitt was read out. So, Karen, do we have the other public speaker with us?
It looks like she's present and that her microphone's on. Mrs. Murphy.
Mrs. Murfitt, can you hear us? I don't think we can wait on this one any longer. Mrs. Murfitt, are you there? Can you give us another minute?
Being heard. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I would just like to thank the Parish Council for their unswerving support, along with New Forest District councillors who have shown great consideration. I urge you to see the drive and really question the passing places on this drive, which will not be acceptable when this all starts. And I live here, so I see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, I will now move to the vote. And just to remind you, if you've had problems with connection problems, I believe Joe Riley had connection problems with this one, you will have to abstain from voting. So the recommendation here is to grant, and that's been proposed by Councillor Grisell and seconded by Councillor Barry Dunning. So we're voting for. So Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
For.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
For.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
For.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Against.
Councillor Kate Grisell.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Against.
Councillor Gangarani.
Abstain.
Councillor Joe Riley had connection problems, so you're abstaining.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Terry.
For.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
Thank you. That motion has been carried. Could you confirm that, please, for me, Democratic Services?
Chairman, can you confirm your vote, please?
Oh, sorry, for.
Hello, I can confirm we've got 12 votes for, 3 votes against, and then there's 2 abstentions. So that carries the motion to approve.
Thank you very much. That concludes this item, so I will adjourn this to enable the public to leave and for new participants to join. Fullwood Park Lane, Milford-on-Sea, application 20/10433, pages 43 to 56. Could I have interests, please? I seem to have lost my RTS at the moment. I'm not sure how to into it. If somebody can get rid of the anonymous guest for me.
The anonymous guest, I think, is Mrs. Chown.
Right, I can't get back into the screen. I can't get back into my RTS.
Hopefully it will appear in a moment. I don't think we've got any interest for this particular application though.
No, okay. Right, let's see if the presentation comes up then. At the moment I'm kind of stuck.
Oh, you've not got the presentation on your screen?
I haven't got, no, I haven't. I've just got a photo of you at the moment, nothing else.
Okay, it might be worth if we just adjourn and then you leave the meeting and come back again, because obviously we need you as chairman.
Thank you, everybody. I'm back in the meeting. So if we can now go ahead with the presentation, please. Vivian Baxter, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good morning, everybody. This application is the final one deferred from last month's and relates to the proposal for 2 detached dwellings on land to the rear of Fullwood in Milford-on-Sea. The reason for the deferral previously was the short notice revised plans that we received relating to a sewage easement, which I'm highlighting on the plan to the southwest corner of the site. Comparing the proposal with the extant permission that was approved at committee just before Christmas last year, you'll notice that the footprints of the 2 dwellings are very similar to the approved scheme, bottom left. The proposed scheme is here top right. The differences between the 2 schemes are the addition of accommodation above the rear projections to both dwellings and also above the attached garage to plot 2. Here is a comparison of plot 1. You can see that the front elevations for extant permission and proposal are very similar, and the change is largely the addition of the pitched roof over the flat roof projection at the side on this particular property. The footprint remains the same with an extension at first floor level only for bedroom 2 in this case. These are the comparisons for plot 2, which is adjacent to 2 Dainstream, close to the east of the site. You'll see the additional roof form over the garage and a small half hip added to that corner of the main roof slope. And again, the footprint of the dwelling is the same as the extant permission, but we have the accommodation of bedroom 3 above the garage and the rear projection of bedroom 2 at the back. Here we can see the sections through the site which indicate the 2 dwellings sitting comfortably within the lie of the land, having regard to the properties either side. And moving to the photographs, this is the western boundary showing the fence between the site and the adjacent property Heathcliff to the right-hand side. This is the front elevation of Heathcliff with its drive and parking area the other side of the fence. The eastern boundary, this is 2 Dainstream Close, indicating a new tandem garage to the side and the existing flat roof garage in their rear garden. This is further north along that same eastern boundary. This is a large area of bamboo which would be removed in order to make way for the proposed development. This is the rear boundary showing the side elevation of the property to the back of the site in Dainstream Close, and a photograph of the rear of the existing dwelling taken roughly from the location of the proposed carport. And just for just to remind members that there is a variety of different house types. This is taken across the rear boundary, and this is Dainstream Close, so there is a variety of dwellings in the immediate area. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to our public speakers. If I can go to Mr. Matt Holmes, Spruce Town Planning Limited, the agent. If you'd like to address us, you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just make sure you can hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. Members, this application has been submitted as a revised scheme to a previous extant planning permission for the construction of 2 houses on this site. We've amended the plans during the course of the application, and we are pleased to note that the recommendation before you is one of approval. The application site is located in a highly accessible location on a residential street close to the centre of Milford-on-Sea. Park Lane comprises a mix of houses and low-rise apartment blocks and has a residential character. The centre of Milford-on-Sea is close by, being approximately 300 metres further east. Therefore, this is a sustainable and suitable location for new homes to be provided. The proposed homes are sited in similar positions to those of the previous approval, and the access arrangements to the site are unchanged. We have designed the houses to respect the character of the area, and they are of a similar appearance to the previous approved scheme. They remain of a size and scale that is appropriate to their location. In terms of the impact of the development upon residential amenity, the proposed buildings were designed and the development arranged on the site in order to ensure that the amenities of those existing properties that neighbour the site will be preserved. The officer's report concurs that this has been achieved. With regards to flood risk, the 2 houses have been designed with floor levels at suitable levels to ensure that they are safe from the risk of flooding for the life of the development, as was agreed for the previous application. Therefore, this aspect of the proposals is unchanged. Members, we have provided sufficient on-site parking to meet the operational needs of the development, and we note that your highways officers have raised no objection to the scheme. Accordingly, members, I commend the proposals to you and would ask that you grant planning permission. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Can I now go to Mrs. Jen Chown, who's objecting? You have 3 minutes. If you'd like to go ahead, please.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Thank you very much indeed. My name is Jen Chown. I live at 2 Dainstream Close, Milford, which is a direct neighbour to the application site and would become the immediate neighbour to the plot 2, with the side of the proposed house facing directly into our garden. The applicant, as far as I can see, submitted revised designs which were loaded onto the Council's portal on the 8th of October 2020. It is these to which I wish to address my comments. Both the buildings to plot 1 and 2 have been moved as a direct result of a recent discovery of what looks like a public sewer. The late discovery of this site constraint should not be the controlling factor in determining this site's solution. The resultant reintroduction of the garage to the side of plot 2 and the placing of bedroom 3 creates overdevelopment and dominates my garden. This is not just my opinion, but also that of your planning officer, who within planning application reference 19-10-787 required the development to be reduced in size and scale before an approval was granted. I would recommend the committee refers to page 9 of the revised design and access statement. The applicant looks to be vague on the matter of levels on their drawings, but the level of the garage is clearly at least 50 to 60 centimetres above the level of my garden. Add to this the height of the garage, bedroom and dormer window to the rear, and the reduced distance to the boundary. This dominates my garden and cuts out valuable sunlight. The Milford-on-Sea Village Design Statement on page 13 states, scale relates not only to a building, but also to the space between it and its neighbours. After having identified on numerous occasions the inaccuracies on the applicant's drawings, I would draw the committee's attention to the officer's report, page 48, para 4, which acknowledges the presence of our rear garden and not a driveway as is shown on the planning drawings. The important distinction I would like to make with regard to the comments in the officer's report, page 48, para 4, the window positions and that of hedges does indeed protect us from overlooking. However, it is the pure bulk of this application, the introduction of an additional bedroom in excess of the permissions originally granted and the expansion over the garage which is of greatest concern. I am disappointed to find that despite the original consent being granted on condition that the scheme be reduced in size and scale, that repeated applications are being brought before this committee with the intent of turning over that condition. Finally, I sincerely trust that the committee will stand fast to their decision of 2019 and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I go to questions, Mr. Andrew Kinghorn, you have a letter to be read out by Miss Sarah Pitt.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. The Parish Council states as follows: despite the reworking of these plans, the Parish Council still considers the scheme to be cramped, overdevelopment of the plot with a badly designed layout for the whole site, which will impact on neighbouring houses and the character of the area. The Parish Council understand there are amendments to these plans which are not available online for comment. It understands from the case officer that the building position has moved eastward, which will further impact on neighbour amenity. The Parish Council asks for clarification of this situation before a decision is reached. In light of these additional concerns, the Parish Council requests this application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Members, we'll now go to questions then for officer or public speakers. Councillor Sue Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 47 of our report, there is a note of 2 visitor parking spaces. Could a case officer indicate where those are on the plan? I couldn't see those marked. That's my first question. Then I have a second question, if I may.
Would you like to state that now?
Yes, the second question. Plot 2, which faces number 2 Dane Street, which is Mrs. Jennifer Chow has just spoken. There are no windows on that side, is that correct?
So this is to Vivian Baxter, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to answer that, please, Vivian?
Both questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully you're able to see the proposed site plan,
yes,
which I've shared again. The 2 visitor parking spaces are located just here in front of the existing dwelling. There's a little kink in the red line there, and there's a little lay-by for 2 parking spaces. Otherwise, there are 2 spaces available in the carport, 1 in the garage and 1 in front of the garage. Yes. With regard to the design of plot 2, with relation to the windows, there are no windows in the side elevation of the garage, but there is what I've been calling a low sill roof light, which I'm highlighting on the plan now. There is a condition requiring the lower section of that to be obscure glazed and fixed shut.
Does that look towards number 2 Dane Street?
It looks, as you look, if you assume you're in that bedroom window looking through that roof light, you would get a view across the rear elevation of the property. So you would be looking at the immediate space to the rear of that property.
So that elevation you're showing us there in that bottom right hand corner, if we compare that with the previous application, that is the side that will look towards Dane Street, is it?
Yes, this is the approved elevation towards number 2.
Okay.
And this is the proposed one. In terms of, because obviously it looks a greater mass, the side of the garage wall is 1.8 metres from the boundary. The main bulk of the house, this element here, is 4.4 metres from the boundary. And this rear projection, with the low sill roof lights is, I haven't measured it off the top of my head, but it's further still than 4.4 metres from the boundary, because that's recessed a little bit. So this is the element that is closest to the boundary.
I understand. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? No more questions coming up. In that case, we'll go into debate. We are now in debate. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Chairman. The Parish Council, I fully endorse their remarks. The proposed elevations of great on the roof ridge heights and bedrooms in roofs is a lot larger than the approved elevations, and I think this is too large, too big a mass, and there's an overlooking. So I think I'm going to go along with the Parish Council on this, and I won't be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Christine Hopkins.
One after the other. Right. This came back to cover the easement on this. Now the easement is just been taken up by more buildings as far as I can see. They've just enlarged what's already there. And what about the flooding from the Dane Stream? Is that going to be affected along there? That's what I would like to know. But it's just overdevelopment once again, and they're sneaking little bits in once again. I'm sorry, I won't be voting for this.
Thank you. Councillor Sue Bennison again.
Thank you, Chairman. The reason I questioned our case officer with regard to the effect of this increased height over the garage and at the back was I'm looking at the surrounding properties, and they are reasonably close, and I think, to be honest, I think I preferred the previous layout without bringing it a second story on the rear projections, if I can put it that way. Difficult, this one, because it's got to fit in and not be overbearing on the neighbours. I think the previous application was I think I agreed with that, and I think I voted for it, but I'm not so sure about this one. Thank you, Chairman. I'll wait to listen to others.
Thank you. Vivian Baxter, can you bring up, please, the overall photo of the layout? Thank you. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, because I've looked at this, and I understand obviously the buildings have to be moved over because of this underground sewer, which obviously has come as a bit of a surprise to a few people, probably not everybody, but the amount of amendment we're actually looking for is not that great. And I'm looking at page 55, which actually shows the picture of the surrounding area to this site, and I see that the amount of gardens that these properties are going to get won't be much different from a lot of the properties around. So to a certain extent, this piece of land does allow itself to be developed, and that's why we agreed last time. And I really do not think that the amount of changes, just by moving it over a little bit and slightly amending it, is actually a big material change. So I'm minded to go with the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Vivian Baxter, can you just confirm the distance, how far it has moved?
Plot 2 was approved at 2.5 metres from the boundary, and it is now 1.8 metres from the boundary. And there's an according shift for the other plot. I believe the distance between the two dwellings is the same. but obviously we have a greater distance between the western boundary and plot 1 and a lesser distance between plot 2 and the eastern boundary.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Bellows, please.
Yes, thank you. I agree with the parish council on this, but have we got a reason now to refuse this? Have we got a good enough reason?
Can I bring in Claire Upton-Brown, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I think what members are suggesting is that whilst the principle of development on this site is acceptable because the plot sizes are not dissimilar to adjoining plots and therefore it isn't overdevelopment in itself, I think some of the members are raising concern about the potential impact the plot would have with the accommodation above the garage would have on the adjoining property in terms of its height and potential overbearing impact.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to join the debate? Councillor Kangarani.
Yes, my point is that people refer to the neighbouring properties being similar size. Do we have to make this not size in terms of density? Do we have to make the matter worse because there are high density there? Should be allowed to make it even worse than what it is? Really, the question. We should really try to reduce the density if we can, rather than trying to match the existing one. I think that doesn't really help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sue Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. Just could I ask another question? Plot 1, this application is increasing the number of bedrooms. Is it from 3 to 4? And plot 2 is just making bedroom 2 a bit larger. Am I correct?
Vivian, would you like to come back on that?
Yes, no, both proposed dwellings would have 4 bedrooms and they previously had 3.
Slide 51, am I looking at the previous one? The slide 51's got 3 bedrooms, hasn't it? Can't see a 4th there.
Apologies, I was looking at the wrong floor plan. Yes, you're correct. There is 3 bedrooms at first floor level in plot 1. I think
plot 1.
Plot 1. I think the previous scheme had a 4th bedroom indicated downstairs, but that's now shown as a family room or study. So apologies. Plot 2 has 4.
It's got an extra bedroom, and the reason it's got the extra bedroom is because it's going over the garage.
That's correct. Yes.
Yes. To my mind, I think this is making it rather overbearing towards the neighbour. And although I can see that the ground floor plan isn't altering on both, well, on one with the second floor to the rear, it is making it a little bit more imposing. I'm minded to vote against this one, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Sevier.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I think we've talked about this quite a length of time, and obviously we've already got permission. They've got permission to build what they have originally, but now they have to shift it. So I'm going to I'm going to propose that we accept this application, and so that we can go to the vote, because I think we're going round in circles a bit.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that. Alan Glass.
Alan Glass. Thank you. Councillor David Hawkins.
Yes, the reasons that that the refusal, as far as I'm concerned, is overdevelopment of the plot with increased ridge heights. That's the difference between this and the previous planning application, plus the fear of flooding. But just because they've shifted it, they've put a very bulky roof on it, which interferes with neighbours, and I don't think it's a neighbourly construction myself.
Thank you very much. we do not have any more people there that want to take part in the debate. So we'll go back to Mr. Matt Holmes. You have 1 minute, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's been some discussion about the increase in the size of the buildings. I would just stress that we've managed that increase in the floor area of the buildings by accommodating the increased floor area within sloping roof forms, i.e. the two rear sections of the buildings and also the pitched roof over the garage. So it doesn't read as so significant as maybe you might think by virtue of how it's been designed. The other thing I'd just like to stress in terms of the impact on the neighbours, and the planning officer did point out that she has suggested conditions to manage the relationship with neighbouring properties, and my clients have already confirmed that they have no objections to those conditions. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. Jennifer Chan, you have 1 minute.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Thank you. I can only emphasise to the committee the revised design access statement on page 9. Why would the applicant reduce the size of the development of June 2019 unless advised to in order to gain planning approval last November? Why is plot 2 now deemed to be an acceptable proposition in its bulk and location to our boundary? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I just come back to Vivian Baxter? Would you like to confirm those conditions that you're adding?
The conditions, if I can find where I've hidden my report on my desk. Right, the conditions that there will be a condition relating to slab level. We have conditions about landscaping, which takes specific account of the reduced distance between the proposed plot 2 and the eastern boundary, and we have other typical conditions relating to habitat mitigation, nitrates, and the same conditions that were put on the previous approval relating to the drainage and flooding aspects of the site.
Thank you very much. Members, we'll now go to the vote. The recommendation is to grant, and that has been proposed by Councillor Sevier and seconded by Councillor Alan Glass. So we're voting for recommendation to grant. Councillor Anne Bellows.
Against.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Against.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
Against.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Against.
Councillor Kate Crizell. Councillor Crizell. I'll come back to you.
Against.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
Against.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
Against.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
Against.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
Against.
Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
Against.
Councillor Joe Riley.
Against.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
For.
Councillor Michael Thierry.
Against.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
Against.
And my vote is, I'm going to go for. So could you confirm that vote for me, please?
Hello, Chairman. I've got 3 votes for, 14 votes against, so that does not carry the motion to approve. Okay. So we need to go back for a new motion.
Chairman, can I propose that we refuse this application?
Is that Councillor?
Councillor Bennison, sorry, Chairman. Can I propose that we refuse this application?
Okay, can I have a seconder?
Could I second that, please? That's Annie Bellows.
Thank you, Anne.
And Chair, we'll need the reason for refusal.
And the reasons would be the extra story over the garage, I feel has impacts on the adjoining property number 2, and the 2 second floor areas on the 2 back projections for the same reasons. The previous application did not have those, which I found was acceptable. I'm not against the properties moving over on the plot. I think that's perfectly acceptable. But I think in asking for the extra second floor makes it an overdevelopment.
Can I maybe read the reason for refusal then back to the members before we vote? So I think you're suggesting that the proposed development, due to its size, height and proximity to the boundary, would have an overbearing impact on the adjoining property, contrary to policy EMB 3 of the local plan.
Yes, thank you. Nicely put.
Okay, we'll now go to that vote then, and this is to refuse. Councillor Anne Bellows.
4.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
4.
Councillor Hilary Brand.
4.
Councillor Rebecca Clark. 4. Councillor Anne Corbridge. 4. Councillor Kate Crozell. 4. Councillor Arthur Davies.
4.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
4, Chairman.
Councillor Alan Glass.
I'll have to go 4 now. Thank you.
Councillor David Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Christine Hopkins. 4. Councillor Mahmood Kangarani.
4.
Councillor Joe Riley.
4.
Councillor Anne Sevier.
I think I'll just abstain, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Michael Thierry.
4.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
4.
And I will also abstain on this one. So could Democratic Services give us a conclusion there, please?
I can confirm that the motion to refuse has been carried.
Thank you very much. That concludes this item. I will adjourn for a few seconds to allow new participants to join the meeting. Thank you. Members will now commence the meeting with the Esso Sports and Recreation Club. This is 179 to 181 on your agenda. Application number 20/10336. Sorry, it's on the agenda. It's pages 57 to 72. So if we can go to the case officer, please, Alita Mishruska, if you would like to do the presentation.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Good morning, members of the Planning Committee. This item relates to Waterside Sports and Social Club located in Holbury, just in Long Lane and opposite Foley Refinery. As you can see, the site is bounded to the south by residential properties and school playing fields to the west and north, and also associated building. The existing site accommodates a building which accommodates a theatre and cinema venue, changing rooms, a social club and a sports pavilion. The area surrounding the buildings is hard surfaced and it's used as car parking. The remainder of the site is used as playing fields and accommodates tennis courts, football pitch, etc. The proposed development consists of demolition of the buildings fronting onto Long Lane and the provision of sports pavilion near the northwestern boundary, just between the tennis courts and the football pitch. The area where the buildings currently sit is proposed to be used as a garden, community garden, and altered car parking with enhanced landscaping scheme. This plan now shows the elevations of the proposed pavilion, and as you can see, the design generally reflects the use of the building, and it's fairly typical design for a building of this nature. Here we have the building, the roof plan shown in context of the site, with enhanced landscaping around the building and terraced area, which is a hard surface area. Here is the floor plan. Again, it's fairly typical for a sports pavilion. If the building would accommodate changing rooms, showers, sports officials, lobbies, a bar, an area which seems to be a flexible area here called main room for various events, as well as a kitchen and utility areas. Here we can see the building, conceptual plan of the building and the proposed landscaping, as well as the area fronting onto Long Lane. Here you can see these are the two existing vehicular access points, which are to remain unaltered. This is the area indicated as the community garden and the revised car parking plan, and you can see enhanced landscaping scheme. And on this plan here you can also see the landscaping, which would include some trees and fronting onto Long Lane, and further planting within the car parking itself. Here in this photograph you can see the existing building, and this is the point where you can see the two-story element of the building, where the theatre and the cinema are located. On this photograph you can see the single-story element of the building, which was the changing rooms and the social club and tea rooms, and the car parking fronting onto the main street, and the playing fields are just there behind the buildings. And this is a photograph looking into the site, so you can see clearly the playing fields here, and the residential properties to the south. Here is the tennis courts, and the proposed pavilion would be located just behind this hedge here, behind the tennis courts and between the football pitch. So I'll just go back to the concept plan to remind of the proposal. And in terms of the assessment of this proposed development, obviously there are a number of relevant matters covered in the recommendation report, which I won't be going through in my presentation today. I will only focus on the most crucial aspects and the matters which received most attention from the third parties, and these are impact on provision of community facilities, impact on non-designated heritage assets, as well as community safety. So starting with impact on provision of community facility, the proposed development involves the provision of sports pavilion, which would accommodate changing rooms, showers, kitchen, bar, as well as the main room area. The pavilion would not provide a space that could facilitate theatre performances or cinema screenings in a similar manner to the existing building. And the strength of opposition to the loss of the theatre facility has to be recognised. Whilst from the representations received, it's clear that the building, and in particular the theatre, when in operation, was a valued community facility, and the theatre ceased its use in late 2016 and has not been used since. And the remaining facilities, the remaining parts of the building were no longer deemed adequate for their use since at least 2019. So in this case, the loss of facilities has occurred some time ago. The existing building is now in a poor state of repair. It requires significant funds to be refurbished. There is no evidence of any community groups or any other interested parties that would be willing to undertake this project. So the building itself at the moment, it doesn't benefit the local community, and there is no feasible prospect of this building being refurbished and used in the same way as it was used in the past. So the submitted application now proposes to provide a pavilion which would accommodate facilities that would support the continued use of the open space as playing fields for the benefit of the local community, and it is strongly supported by the local community. In summary, it is considered that as the theatre closed about 4 years ago, the proposal would not result in a loss of existing operational cultural facility. The proposed pavilion would enable the use of the sports field in the future, again to the benefit of the local community, and therefore it is considered that the proposed development is in accordance with the local and national planning policies. In terms of impact on non-designated heritage assets, the Council Conservation Officer considers the existing building to be a non-designated heritage asset, as in summary, the building is well-designed historic structure that makes a positive contribution to the character of the area, and also it does reflect the history of the area. The loss of the building would cause substantial harm, and this harm needs to be weighed against any public benefit. These include social, economic and environmental benefits to the local community, local environment, as well as biodiversity and local wildlife. The different benefits again have been identified in some detail in the recommendation report, and there is no need to repeat this today. In summary and on balance, officers conclude that whilst the loss of the building would be regretful, the public benefits outlined in the report outweigh the harm caused by the complete demolition of the building. And finally, and turning to impact on community safety, and also to explain maybe a little bit more the recommendation. The application site is located within Health and Safety Executive consultation zones, and the Health and Safety Executive advises against the proposed community garden and the revised car parking arrangement on grounds of risk of harm to people on site. However, they don't advise against the proposed pavilion. In light of the fact that the existing building with the car park, the existing building and the car park could accommodate more users than the proposed community garden and the car park, officers consider that the proposed development would actually likely reduce the risk to the health and safety of the communities on site. And on this basis, officers recommend that this application is conditionally approved, subject to a notification to the health and safety, and that the local planning authority is minded to approve the application and allowing the health and safety executive 21 days to reconsider their objection, and also to give them the opportunity to request the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government to call in the application. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Before I go to the speakers, we didn't have a declaration of interest. Can we have that now? Beverly, Councillor Thorne, are you declaring an interest?
I am member for the Parish Council.
Thank you. And Councillor Alan Glass, did I see you there?
I was declaring interest, and also I've got a couple of questions to ask at the end.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other interests on this one? Thank you, Councillor Cherry. Have noted your comments. Thank you. Then, if we have all the declarations of interest, we'll go to the speakers. Could we have Mr. Simon Downing, please, from Exmouth? You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Can I just confirm you can hear me?
We can, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to outline SO's planning proposal for the Holbury site. Affectionately known as the Waterside Social Club, SO Club or the Top Club, the Holbury site holds special memories for many in our community. I played rugby myself there in the past, and you cannot miss it as you drive through Holbury Village. The comments received in response to our planning application show the affection that many in our community feel for the site. I recognise the importance of the Holbury site and assure you that SO remains committed to our local community and the sports facilities at the site. SO Club was built around 1951 for use by SO workers, and later membership was opened up to the general public. Around 2002, the site was leased to a third party, but after 15 years, the lease was returned to SO. Attendance at the clubhouse had fallen, reflecting a wider change in social patterns, and despite support from SO, the site was no longer commercially viable. We were keen to ensure continuity in community access to the site, so we entered into an agreement with the newly formed Holbury Community Sports Association to use the grounds and changing room facilities for football, cricket, tennis and bowls. Investigations of the main building, including the theatre and ballroom, show that it was not fit for purpose. It is not maintainable in its current state and will cost millions to upgrade to present standards. Unfortunately, despite many costly efforts to maintain security, the building has been subject to sustained vandalism, causing substantial issues to the building's integrity. Maintaining the building is not a viable option. Our plan, subject to planning permission, is to demolish the building and in part replace it with a lawned area that will be open to the general public. The car park will be graded, as you've seen, including cycle racks, and the front perimeter hedge reduced so that the community can enjoy a view through to the field behind. A palisade fence lined with benches and native trees would be erected between the field and the lawn area to secure it from the public area, but allow people to watch any matches being played. Temporary changing rooms have been provided to the Sports Association, and this will continue until new changing rooms are built, subject to planning permission. The new building will be built to the appropriate standards. In summary, Madam Chairman, SO recognises that the site has been an integral part of the local community since 1951, and our plans, subject to permission, will improve the sports facilities for the benefit of all members. Not only this, but the public will be able to use the area and enjoy the view of the field beyond as sports take place. It's testament to our commitment to the local community that we've contributed around £1 million in the last 5 years alone to schools, community groups and charities. We believe that the proposal is the best, most sustainable way forward for the site, which will be far more aesthetically pleasing and will provide the local community with excellent sports facilities for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we now go to Mr. Christopher Wortley, please, who's objecting? You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you and to the councillors and to Simon from SO. I should say straight away, I'm not objecting to the sports complex. I'm delighted the site is being developed. That's very good. Nor am I objecting to the demolition of the theatre. It's just a regret. I have to object. That's the only way I can speak. It's a regret that we're not doing more. That I think this is an opportunity to give the community something that it has had before with the theatre and could still have again if the plans were just increased a little bit to provide a performance space. I want to say that this area, the Waterside area, which I'm very familiar with, has no performance spaces, none at all. Most communities have somewhere where you can put on shows. You can put on an amateur talent show or get professional stand-up comedians to come. There's nowhere here other than school halls where you can do that. And it would be, and we used to have it with the theatre. The theatre was terrible in many ways, but at least it provided that. Since the theatre was closed, that's been taken away. And I should say the argument that the theatre hasn't been used since 2016 is a specious argument. The reason it hasn't been used is because there's a big padlock on the door. Nobody has been able to use it. Had it been available, it would have been used. I've been involved with musical theatre, that's my particular area of performance, for over 30 years in this area. And my view is that groups such as mine provide something very good for communities, not just the people who perform, but all the people who come to see the shows. And the old theatre had lots of those people. There were many groups who used it, people who hired it, and people who performed there. And there must be, well, every year, thousands of tickets were sold for musical theatre, for pantomime, for theatre. The number of people in this area who used to go to I used to sell tickets and talk to people, and they said, oh, we love coming to that theatre. I'm not arguing that the theatre should be preserved. I understand why it has to go. But people like coming to see theatre. They want to see something live. And we could still have that if these plans could just be enhanced to do that. We could have concerts, pop concerts, orchestral concerts, as I said, stand-up comedians, and my thing, musical theatre, ballet, whatever. I'm asking the council to ask ESSO to think again, to just be a little bit more imaginative and put back what removing the theatre would take away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now come to Mr. Tom Clark, who is representing Theatres Trust. You also have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Theatres Trust is a statutory consultee, and we strongly object to the demolition of the Waterside Theatre, which is believed to be unique in being built as a fully functioning theatre by an employer. Opening 70 years ago. It's certainly got local heritage significance, and I note the detailed comments of the council's heritage officer, who was also similarly opposed to this development. The trust considers the potential of the building and what it can offer the community actually hasn't been properly appreciated, assessed or understood by the applicants. Correspondence following the theatre's closure with us confirmed it to be fully functioning with stage house, full height fly lines, lighting rigs, generous stage, dressing rooms and theatre bar. And its capacity we would consider to be realistic for a community venue. Its flat floor offers flexibility, and along with theatre could actually host many types of events such as markets, beer festivals and larger parties that the new facility simply couldn't handle. There are many comments of support and many of objection, but these need not actually be mutually exclusive. As the last speaker was alluding to, a redesigned scheme which actually we think should retain and refurbish the existing theatre whilst providing the change rooms and facilities the sports club need would satisfy all parties. And while I appreciate this comes at a cost, so does demolition and new construction. And quite apart from any heritage and social benefits of retention, it's also a much more environmentally sustainable option. The loss of the theatre as a facility without sufficient demonstration is surplus to the community requirements is contrary to local and national policy. The case officer's report acknowledges that when in use the theatre was valued for the community, but objectively I consider their assessment of the scheme leading to the recommendation to be flawed. The report states that without the pavilion the site cannot be used to its full potential, but it's not clear how this wouldn't be the case if it were incorporated within the retained theatre. More problematic is the rationale that because the theatre closed 4 years ago, the proposal will be in accordance with local and national policy. That absolutely is not how policy should be applied, and I speak as a statutory consultee with extensive national experience. Were that to be the case, owners of community, cultural and social facilities of all types could simply close them to justify alternative use, which renders NPPF paragraph 92 meaningless. The measure should be local demand and needs, and on those measures the proposal fails. I would respectfully advise committee that case law emphasises the importance of the views of statutory consultees such as Theatres Trust, with legal requirements upon you as decision makers to robustly justify why you should depart from our expert views. Adaptation of the existing building to meet the needs of all parties we consider would be the optimal outcome for all parts of the community and would retain this unique building. Approval of this application today would close that option and benefit only part of the community. So I urge the committee to refuse this application and preserve the Waterside Theatre as a local heritage asset and facility for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have some correspondence from Councillor Alan Alvey, and I'd like to ask Andrew Kinghorn if he'll read this out, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is a statement from Councillor Alan Alvery, District Councillor for Forley, Blackfield and Langley and Chairman of Forley Parish Council. I would like to register my support for this application. The Parish Council reviewed the application and voted to recommend approval. The Waterside Theatre has been closed since 2017 and the structure has continued to deteriorate. The theatre and sports clubs were being run by a community group which failed to maintain the building. There is no prospect of an alternative management or community group to take over this building, so it is very likely that it will continue to deteriorate and continue to be an eyesore and a magnet for vandals. The building of the pavilion will provide much needed facilities for the many sports clubs that use the land surrounding the theatre. The development in front of the sports fields on the site of the old theatre will greatly improve the environment in Holbury. I would like to thank ExxonMobil for their continued interest and support for this redevelopment. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Members, question time. Do you have questions, please, for our officers or our public? Councillor Hilary Brand.
Hello, I wondered if it was possible to see a plan of the inside of the building to understand the layout and the size.
I don't have the site layout plan ready for the presentation at the moment, but I can confirm that the existing building, in terms of the internal layout, it did include a theatre and a cinema room. There was a room called a clubhouse and a sports pavilion.
Yeah, it was more the internal layout and size of the new building.
Oh, the new building. The new pavilion this is the site, the internal layout of the new pavilion.
And would there be any opportunity or chance to include a stage or something for the theatre within the new building?
Probably not at the same scale as within the existing building, but there would be a room, like I say, it's identified on the plan as a main room, and it does appear to be a flexible area which could potentially accommodate small scale events, but not at the same scale as the existing building.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I go to Councillor Arthur Davies, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is a question to Alita Miskowski. I've pronounced that properly. Hi, Alita. The question is, the concern I've got, the only real concern I've got is the safety executive consultants. That the objection they've got, you did mention it briefly, they are supposed to come back. And am I right? So this is the worry I've got, because health and safety executive in my day were very powerful. They were also, you couldn't really go against them, but we seem to be. So basically, if you could elaborate exactly where the position is with the health and safety executive, have they come back? I'm not sure if you said they have come back. And I believe you mentioned something about they could call it in so there's some big question marks there, Alita. So if you could elaborate, that I'd be grateful.
That's absolutely fine. So we carried out initial consultation with health and safety executive. And the way this consultation is carried out is, you could almost imagine, self-service system, which is an application, online-based application that we planning officers can use. And this application asks us to identify the site and identify the proposed development. And then, based on this, we get very generic questions, and we only have certain certain answers that we can choose. We can't give very specific information on this proposal and can't give any specific answers to these questions. And based on the very vague answers, the consultation response is generated. So it's just system generated response. And this is why, following the objection, I have consulted health and safety executive. I have contacted health and safety executive, explaining the proposal and explaining the current likelihood of risk of harm to people based on the current position and in comparison to the proposed development. And this has been sent to health and safety executive, and unfortunately we haven't heard from them yet. But I know they experienced delays. I had similar situation a few months ago, and I think it took about 6 weeks before I received comments from them. And in that case, they withdrew their comments. So I'd say I was hoping that we might be able to receive these comments by today. We haven't. Therefore, the recommendation is to go through the very formal route where we let them know, we give them a notice, 21-day notice, and say based on this information, we are minding to approve this application. And it's almost like forcing a human being to look into it, because at the moment what we have is very generic response based on very vague answers. And this is only the way the system is designed, that it doesn't allow us to explain the proposal to them to such extent that actually we can get better consultation response.
Thank you, Alessa. It's a shame they haven't got back to us, but you explained that very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think this is a problem everywhere at the moment with COVID. People just aren't in their offices. Okay, if we can go to Councillor Rebecca Clark, please.
I'll have a go in a minute. Before.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mine is a question to the officer, and it refers to the planning policy terms taken into account in the planning balance. If I could just read the sentence I'm referring to, it's on page 65, and it says that the development would enable the continued and more efficient use of the recreational lands in an area where alternative facilities do not exist that adequately meet the local community's need for sports and recreation, and where relevant planning policies support the provision and improvement of such facilities. This attracts substantial weight in favour of the proposed development. I wonder if the officer could give me a little more detail on how that argument is worked up. Bearing in mind I'm a waterside resident, and I'm aware of the QE2 Rec, Gangwary Recreation and Community Centre, Cowshot Activities Centre, which has some very unique offerings in the way of sports and recreation, Applemore Leisure Centre, all of which are on a main bus route. I would say that the waterside is actually very well provided for, and a variety of sport and recreation activities available. Equally, the pavilion being constructed doesn't stop current activities, and there's only one large theatre space on the waterside. So the fact that this particular area of the report attracts substantial weight in favour of the proposed development, I just wondered if you could talk me through the evidence of the lack of sports and recreation available to come to this balance in the planning assessment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So the argument is based on the fact that as the recreational site is a large site, it does include a large open space designated in planning policies as an open space and playing fields, and because of its size it does accommodate various sports fields. So it's got cricket field, football pitch, tennis, so variety of sports can actually take place within the site within sports seasons. Also the site is well located, is is accessible. It's located just off a main road. It's got substantial car parking, so it can actually accommodate quite a large number of people on the site. So the overall quality of the site is quite high, because, like I say, it can accommodate various sporting events. And we do know, because we did have a series of temporary planning permissions since 2018 for the siting of portable buildings that included changing room and associated facilities that were needed during sports seasons. So we know already that the existing building and the changing rooms in the existing buildings, they couldn't be used in the past. So bringing or providing a permanent structure that permanently can provide these facilities will enable the open space and the playing fields to be used to their full capacity.
Thank you for your answer. Thank
you. Councillor Joe Riley.
I haven't got a question for any of the guests, but I will speak in debate. Is that all right?
That's fine, thank you. Councillor Benison.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of questions. One really is with regard to this condition of the building. Our conservation officer says that it's a well-designed historic structure. So my question there is, what part of the building is deteriorating? It looks to me like a pretty substantial brick building. My second question would be to both of the public speakers, Mr. Workley or Mr. Clark. I think it was Mr. Workley said that access to the theatre wasn't possible, that it has a padlock on it. If you could gain access, would this building be used? Is there an organisation that would like to use the facilities that are supplied in the theatre building, which our report says full height fly tower along with cinema screen and flat floor to allow dances? It seems to me that there's a lot of community assets in that building, which, if it's demolished, would go forever.
Can I bring back Mr. Simon Downing on that one about the condition, please?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The outside of the building, as you look, the bricks are still there, but there are issues with the inside of the building. And in fact, back in 2015, 16, various dance groups, etc., had all stopped using it because it was unsafe. So the inside of the building would need significant expense to make it safe to use. I don't have a detailed report available, but it was a significant expenditure to make it anywhere usable.
So is the building watertight?
Parts of the building, I can't remember exactly which bits, but large parts of the building, no, are not. The overall facility.
Okay, and when you say not safe, what do you mean by not safe?
Again, I don't have the detailed report in front of me, but the general facilities had kind of deteriorated. I think the staging work, bathrooms, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if we can move on then, can we go to Councillor Alan Glass, please?
No, my second question, Chairman, if I may, was to the two public speakers about the use of it. Could they comment?
The use of what?
What, if they could gain access, I understand it's padlocked and so they can't gain access. So if they could gain access, would they use it? I don't want to
get into that discussion of what they might or might not be able to do. I think we need to move on from this one.
Well, it's to establish the use, Chairman.
Well, it's not in use. It can't be used at the moment, can it? So we need to carry on with it as it is in the application. If I can go to Councillor Alan Glass, please.
Yeah. Both the councillors, and this falls within our ward. I've personally known this theatre and the rest of the buildings for over 50 years. They were very well maintained until a small group took over, and they were just neglected.
Is this a question?
It is, but I want to explain the context, because a lot of people that are talking about this have only driven past it, they haven't seen it. I think the state of this building does require demolition. My question is that there's a strong understanding in the area that there's quite a bit of asbestos within the theatre and within the roofs of the adjoining buildings. During demolition, would this be taken into account, and have we done an asbestos survey on it prior to demolition? Thank you.
Is that to Arlita? Arlita, can you answer that?
Yes, I can, Madam Chairman. We have received demolition statement and method statement, which outlines that this will be taken into consideration. However, it's not up to the local planning authority to look into it. It's not something that we regulate. This is regulated, safe disposal of asbestos is regulated by the Health and Safety Executive, and there is regulation in place to ensure that. What we can do as a local planning authority is to ensure that the method statement that have been, it has been conditioned and would have to be followed, that is the case. So we can enforce that planning condition, which requires that the demolition is taken in accordance with the method statement. But when it comes to the very details of disposal of asbestos, this will have to be undertaken in accordance with regulations of the Health and Safety Executive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Bellows.
My question has been answered, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kangarani.
Thank you. I understand there was a theatre in there and they're going to be demolished and nothing going to replace it. Would that be possible to make a provisional condition that the facility for performance art and theatre will be provided? I think that facility is lacking within the area. We have lots of sporting activities already exist in that area, but theatre and performance art is not.
Thank you, Councillor Kangarani. That would be a different application altogether. That's not part of this one. If we can move to Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Thank you, Chair. My question was for Simon Downing, and it's very similar to Councillor Kangarani's, and that was, did they take, given the weight of opinion or that for a community facility requirement, did they take that into account, and could they take that into account in their rebuilding?
Hi, Simon here. Yeah, we looked at obviously the maintainability of the site and the cost to maintain it or to build anything significant as a theatre is beyond what SL can fund. So it really comes down to kind of what we can, the amount of money that we could put into the local community in that area. We already, as you know, donate a significant amount to the local community, but not to the provision of building a new theatre. And while we're here, there was a question going on that I think I could help to answer, that a full asbestos survey has been done to all the appropriate regulations with all the appropriate inspectors, and it's already been removed from the interior. At significant expense, I might add. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of questioning, and members, we will now go into debate. I believe Councillor Joe Riley wanted to start the debate.
Yeah, I would like to start the debate on this building. It is a shambles at the moment, and I think Councillor Alvey spoke adequately well about his parish council, Fawley Parish Council, and I think the design and the look of the site that's up for debate or up for recommendation looks brilliant, and I will be recommending it. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, members, can you indicate who's next on my list here of RTSs?
Christine Hopkins, Chairman.
Okay, I can't find her. Christine, would you like to go ahead with your comments?
Story of my life. Yes, it looks fantastic to me. The gardens and everything that are going to be, you know me and gardens anyway. One garden's never enough. It's a shame about the cinema, but I'm sure somebody and the theatre.
Okay, I can't find her. Christine, would you like to go ahead with your comments?
We ought to go ahead. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I can't find her. Christine, would you like to go?
Sorry, Beverly.
Okay, if we can go then to Sue Benison.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay,
I don't have any problems
to...
with the new build, positioned much further back in the site, but I do have concerns about the demolition of the theatre, particularly reading our conservation officer's comments on this, and the fact that this is a bespoke building in a way that provides both the theatre and cinema facilities as well as a dance floor. I would be very sorry to see this building come down that provides these facilities that will no longer be provided if it's demolished. It seems to me that what will replace it is a very small garden area and much more car parking. I'm not sure that I'm convinced that that's in the best interests of the community. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Thank you very much, Chair. My comments, Shadow Councillor Benison, it's a shame that these are sort of twinned together, because in effect the pavilion, which seemingly is well received, and no objections to that whatsoever, and indeed it could be built, leaving the future of the theatre somewhat in abeyance. We are in the middle of a pandemic at the moment, and as a council, given the fact that we are not awash with cultural assets in the waterside, I actually feel it would be unconscionable at the moment, given the word of the Theatres Trust and the Conservation NFDC officer, to actually make a decision to demolish this building at the moment. I live on the waterside. I can't see any pavilion that helps to sufficiently mitigate the loss and the community facilities that were provided by that building. There just doesn't seem to be enough of a balance, and I would like to see the applicant come back with something for the pavilion that could be set up, or something for the pavilion that could be set up that could incorporate more of the things that will be lost through the demolition of this theatre. I just think, in the time of pandemic, the sort of things that will re-energise our communities and our families are the sort of things that would stem from this sort of community building. And I know Western is very committed to the community. I know that it communicates with them frequently and it invests in the community. And I think there's no better way at the moment than for them to look at this again and preserve this. or at least do something to replace it and enable the similar activities that used to go on before it fell into disrepair, not necessarily due to the fact that the building isn't suitable, but just due to some unfortunate circumstances of management and the place not being looked after. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Arthur Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is a shame. I can understand the arguments from the objectors and Councillor Clark, but we have to be realistic. If we don't pass this, this building we get into more disrepair, will become an eyesore. This is overall a good scheme. It doesn't cover everything, but it's a good scheme. So I think we've exhausted this now. I'm quite exhausted this one. I think we should go what's on the paper and recommend to grant this application.
Thank you. I've got 2 more speakers and then I'll close the debate. Councillor Anne Bellows. Councillor Bellows?
Sorry. Yeah, I go totally with what Councillor Davies has said. It is a shame, but people have had 4 years to do something about this and nothing has been done. So now the building does need to go because it is an eyesore, and what is being proposed, I think, is very workable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Sevier, last speaker, please. Councillor Sevier?
That's better. I thought I clicked on and I hadn't.
Okay.
I was just going to say, do it very quickly, that then this was built in 1951, of course. Nobody had televisions, and going out of an evening to cinemas was a very part of your culture, so things have changed a lot. And the problem normally is, I'm quite agree with conservation order, we would be looking to find another use for a iconic building, but in this case next to Fawley Power Station at that Fawley refinery, there is no real any other option other than demolishing, so I'm going to be agreeing with the other speakers. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. I'll now go back to the speakers. You'll all have 1 minute to speak. Mr. Simon Downing, 1 minute please. Mr. Downing, are you with us? I might come back to you then. What about Mr. Christopher Wortley? Are you there?
Simon Downing here. Sorry, I kept being muted as I was trying to get on. I just want to thank everybody for the debate. We would, I hear about what you say about the theatre, but the reality is the cost to replace the theatre would be huge, and there isn't demand there as societal has moved on, as one of the other speakers said. So it's with regret that we do that, want to move on. The building is an eyesore. It's becoming a safety issue. Despite security, we're really struggling with vandals, and for the benefit of the whole community, I think it's time for the building to go, and we think what we replace it with will be a much more of a appreciable amenity for the local community, and much less of an eyesore and more of an asset. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wortley, you have a minute.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the councillors who've spoken in favour of community facility that's beyond sports. I'm looking at the plan now. I'm looking at this room that's flexible. Could it not be that with just a little more effort that could be expanded, just a bit bigger, a little stage, some lighting bars, some retractable raked seating, something that could provide a flexible performance space? People keep talking about the cinema. I'm talking about live performance. People like live. They like going to live pop concerts. They want to go to live shows. At the moment, they trek into Southampton. That's it. If the community want to put on a show, they go to a school. Could we not do better than that?
Thank you very much. Mr. Tom Clark, you have a minute.
Yes, really, I would concur with Councillors Bennison and Clark. Members really need to appreciate the value of a purpose-built facility that they've got. It's tremendously expensive to re-provide such a facility. And communities up and down the country would absolutely love to have a facility such as this, which Holbury already has, and yet you're suggesting that this building should be demolished. Coming back to Councillor Sevier and the gentleman from Esso, I'd be interested to know where the evidence is that there won't be demand for such a cultural facility, because actually demand for cultural facilities is going up and has been for some time. Ultimately, even if there's an argument to re-provide theatre within the new facility, the size and volume of it wouldn't withstand that at the moment. It would need a redesign. And I would absolutely urge you to refuse this application. That's not making a statement against the sports facility and pavilion, but it just recognises that actually there is another option that would retain a facility for the community that wouldn't exist anymore if this proposal goes ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, we now come to the vote, and I've already got a message here that Councillor Kangarani lost connection. So if any of you have lost any connection, you'll need to abstain from voting. So we are voting now to grant on this one, and that's been proposed by Councillor Christine Hopkins and seconded by Councillor Beverly Thorne. So voting to grant. Councillor Anne Bellows.
For.
Councillor Sue Bennison.
Against.
Councillor Hilary Brown.
Against.
Councillor Rebecca Clark.
Against.
Councillor Anne Corbridge.
Against.
Councillor Kate Crazell.
For.
Councillor Arthur Davies.
For.
Councillor Barry Dunning.
For.
Councillor Alan Glass.
For.
Councillor David Hawkins.
For.
Councillor Christine Hopkins.
For.
Councillor Kangarani, you will need to abstain.
Abstained.
Councillor Joe Riley.
For.
Councillor Anne Sevier. Councillor Sevier. I'll come back to Councillor Sevier. Councillor Michael Thierry.
For.
Councillor Beverly Thorne.
For.
And I'm for. Can I come back to Councillor Anne Sevier? Can you hear us?
Functionality, as it keeps saying. So I'm for, if you can hear me. If not, I'll abstain.
We can hear you, and I accept your vote for. So that motion has been carried. Can I have confirmation, please, Democratic Services?
Hello, I can confirm that the motion carried to approve has been, the motion to approve has been carried with 14 votes for, 4 votes against, and then an abstention from Councillor Kangarani.
Thank you very much. Well, members, this has brought us to 1 o'clock. I'm not as far ahead with this agenda that I was hoping to be. We have 5 applications to look at this afternoon, and just to remind everybody that application 20/11005 has been withdrawn. So we will close now, we'll adjourn now for lunch. We'll be back at 2 o'clock to commence again with the afternoon session. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Chairman.